All right, on to the last section of the packet, solving linear equations. This is stuff you should be used to by now. This is the most basic form of algebra that we did in Algebra 1. So when you solve linear equations, remember first, when you see parentheses, that you have to distribute. So if you have a 4 in front of the parentheses, you distribute that to all the terms inside the parentheses. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 5 is 20. That gives you 20n. Now, one of the most common mistakes here is people will add this 8n to the 20. You don't do that because they're on the same side of the equal sign. You want to go ahead and just combine those terms. So it'd be 20n minus 8n. So it gives you 12n plus 4 equals negative 6n minus 14. Then you add the 6n to the other side. Those cancel. You get 18n plus 4 equals negative 14. Subtract the 4. Those cancel. You get 18n equals negative 18. Divide by 18, n equals negative 1. So that's the most basic form of the question. I mean, there are some that are even more basic than that, but the next type is where we have 5 over r minus 9 equals 8 over r plus 5. So when you have a question like this, where you have two fractions on opposite sides of the equal sign, especially when the variables are in the denominators, the easiest way to do this is to cross multiply. So it just becomes 5 times r plus 5 and 8 times r minus 9. Now, because we have to multiply the r plus 5 times 5, you have to distribute the 5 to both terms. So it's going to be 5r plus 25 equals 8r minus 72. And now you just solve this like a normal equation. Subtract the 5r from both sides. Gives you 25. And you can add the 72 in this step also if you want. Gives you 97 equals 3r. Divide by 3. That doesn't go in evenly. So you can just leave it as 97 over 3. Okay. The next type of question is one where it says the sum of 3 consecutive even integers is 60. What is the first of the 3 even integers? It does the same thing with odd integers. It'll say the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is 60. Anytime it says that, if you think about even integers, that would be like 2, 4, and 6. So if 2 is x, then what do you have to do to x to get 4? You would just add 2. So 4 is just x plus 2, and 6 is just x plus 4. Adding 4 to the 2 to get 6. So the sum of 3 consecutive even integers would be x plus 2 plus x plus 4. And then when it says is, that automatically means equals 60. Now for the record, it's the same thing with odd integers. 1, 3, 5 would be x plus 2, because 1 plus 2 is 3, or x plus 4, because 1 plus 4 is 5. Sometimes it doesn't say even or odd at all. It just says sum of 3 consecutive integers. And that would be x plus 1, x plus 2. Okay. Now all we have to do is combine our like terms here. So it gives you 3x plus 6 equals 60. Subtract the 6 from both sides. It gives you 3x equals 54. Divide by 3. X equals 3 goes into 5. 18. Okay, so that's really the end of the linear equations one. I want you to actually try the work, so pause the video now, and then we're going to go over everything that we did this week. Okay, turn to your factoring polynomials page. We already went through how to do these, so I'm actually just going to do the questions. First, we have to figure out what goes into each one of these terms. And I see these are all even numbers, so I know it's going to be a 2. And there's an x in each one of them. So it says, what is the largest factor that can be factored out? That would just be 2x. Number 2, when the expression x squared plus 6x minus 27 is factored completely, which is one of its factors? So we can break it down like this. X and x, and then what multiplies to give us negative 27? It would be a 9 and a negative 3. Then 9 minus 3 is 6, so you know that's the correct way. And so you see that it has to be x plus 9. Number 3, when the expression 2x squared minus 8x minus 64 is factored completely, which is one of its factors, first thing you have to do is check to see if you can factor anything out of all 3 terms. And in this case we can. We can pull a 2 out, which makes this x squared minus 4x minus 32. And that becomes 2. Then it's an x and an x. And then what multiplies to give you 32 and adds to give you negative 4. It's going to be minus 8 and plus 4. Okay, this one. Once again, we see that we can factor out a 3 from all 3 terms. But then you can also factor out an x. So it's going to be 3x. Let me move this over. Then that leaves an x squared plus 3x. And then 54 divided by 3 is 18. And so now we can break this down further. It's going to give us x plus 6 and x minus 3. Okay, this is a difference of 2 squares. And we know that because there's no middle term in it. And so all we have to know is what squared gives you 64, and it's 8. So it's x plus 8 and x minus 8. Number 6, again, we have to factor out a common term for each of these. So you factor out a 2. It gives you x squared minus 49. Now this is a difference of 2 squares again, which means you do an x plus some number and an x minus some number. And the number has to be the same. So what multiplies to give you 49? 7 and 7. Okay, when we look at this question, basically it tells you that you need to factor out the width of the garden. So you have w squared plus 2w minus 8. And if you factor this out, even if you don't know what to do, basically anytime you see a trinomial like this, it's a quadratic equation, so that means it's squared is the biggest term. Anytime you see that, you know that you're going to have to factor. It's going to be W and W. And then what multiplies to give us negative 8. Well, if this is a negative, it means that one of them has to be plus and one has to be minus. And then what multiplies to give you 8 and adds to or combines together to give you 2. It would have to be a positive 4 and a minus 2. And we already knew that W minus 2 was one of the factors, so you would have just known that this had to be a plus 4. So your width would be W plus 4. That's based off of the equation area equals length times width. Okay, part 2 of this. Beth decides to create a new garden to produce more vegetables. Total area of the new garden is given by the polynomial W squared plus 8W plus 16. Determine the length and width of the new garden by factoring. So it tells you have to factor. So W squared plus 8W plus 16. So it's going to give you a W and W. Then what multiplies to give you 16. This is a plus and a plus, which means it's plus and plus down here. What multiplies to give you 16 and adds to give you 8? That would have to be a 4 and a 4. So your length is W plus 4. Your width is W plus 4. And the shape would be a square instead of a rectangle. So those weren't too bad as long as you were factoring correctly. Speaking of factoring correctly, you have to do that for simplifying rational algebraic expressions. So for this one, I need to figure out what we can factor out of the top first. Sorry. So I see that everything has a 4 in it. So I know I can pull a 4 out in front. They all have at least one X. And they all have at least 2 Y's. Okay, so if I pulled a 4 out, that would make this 2. And then I pulled one X out. And I pulled both Y's out. So that would be plus. Then 12 divided by 4 is 3. I pulled one X out, so there's an X squared left. And I pulled 2 Y's out, so it's Y squared. And then for the last term, I pulled the 4 out, the X out, and 2 of the Y's. So that would just be plus Y. And this is still all over 2xy squared. Now we can cancel. 4 divided by 2 just gives you 2. The x's cancel. The y squareds cancel. And so we're left with 2 times 2x plus 3x squared y squared plus y. But that's none of our answer choices. So let's redistribute this 2 now that we have it simplified. So it'll give you 4x plus 6x squared y squared plus 2y. And so it's got to be B. These are a little more difficult. Okay, let's look at this one. What can we factor out? We can factor an 8 out of all of those terms. We can factor 2 x's out. Oops. How many y's can we factor out? We can factor out 1 y and 2 z's. So when we factor that all out, we're going to get, for the first term, take the 8 out, the x squared out, and one of the y's out. If we took one y out, we still have 2 y's, and we took 2 z's out, so we have 2 z's left. For the second term, it would be 2. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Took out 2 x's, so it would be 2 x's left. Took out 1 y, so there's 1 y left. And we took out 2 z's, so there's 1 z left. Then the last term would be minus 3. Took out 2 x's, so it would be x to the 4th. Took out the y, and we took out the 2 z's. And that is all divided by 4x squared y z squared. Okay, our x squareds will cancel, our y's will cancel, and our z squareds will cancel. Then it's 8 divided by 4, which just gives you 2. So it's 2y squared z squared plus 2x squared yz minus 3x to the 4th. So we just distribute that. Number 3, it says simplify. Now, this is a hint for any one of your questions. When it says x is not equal to 6, you know that's one of the factors on the bottom. So it's going to be a little more pertinent in the next question. This x minus 6 will cancel with one of those. You're left with x minus 12 over x minus 6. Look at question 4. On the top, you can factor out a 4 first. That leaves you with x squared minus 2x minus 32. It's going to be 4. It's going to be x minus, it's 32. Eight and 4 isn't going to work. Oh, I forgot to pull out the 4 from the 32. Sorry about that. That's going to be an 8. Alright, that's better. So that's going to give us x minus 4 and x minus 2. Now if you look here, it says x is not equal to 4 or 6. First thing you notice is we can pull out a 2 on the bottom. So we do x squared minus 10x so it's x squared minus 10x and plus 24. Then since this says x is not equal to 4 or 6, you know that that's going to factor out 2, x minus 4, and x minus 6. Now you just look at what you can cancel out. This x minus 4 cancels it there. 4 divided by 2 is 2 left on top. So you get 2 times x minus 2 over x minus 6. Should be an x plus 2. So let's see. Number 5, we can factor out a 3 first. It's going to give us x squared plus 3x, and then 84 divided by 3. It's 28. Minus 28. and that factors out to x plus 7 and x minus 4. Then in the denominator, we can factor a 3 out. That's going to give you x squared plus 12x, and then 105 divided by 3 is 35. Right. 105 divided by 3, 3 goes into 10, 3 times, yeah. And so that's going to give you x plus 5 and x plus 7. Your x plus 7s are going to cancel out. Your 3's are going to cancel out. You're left with x minus 4 over x plus 5. These numbers were wrong for some reason here. That should have been -5 and -7. They won't make that mistake on the actual test. All right, number 6. Let's divide by 12 on the top to start off. It's going to give you x squared plus 7x plus 12. Then we can factor that out to x plus 4 and x plus 3. On the bottom, we can factor a 6 out. Gives you x squared minus x minus 20. Then it's going to be x plus 4 and x minus 5. X plus 4's cancel. You're left with an x plus 3 over x minus 5. 12 divided by 6 is 2, so it's B. All right. The length of a roof truss is represented by the expression blah, 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 blah. Each support holding up the truss should be blah, 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 feet apart from the next. In terms of x in its simplified form, how many supports should the truss have? Okay, so we are just taking the truss and dividing it by the support holding up, or the distance apart. Okay, so on the top, you can factor this out. It's going to be an x and an x, and then what multiplies to give you 96 and adds to give you 20. I don't know exactly what that number is. I'm going to do some experimenting here. I'm going to see if it's 16 and 4. That's definitely not right. Let's go 18. Multiplies to give you 96. 96 divided by 4 will give us 24. Okay, so it's going to be 8 and 12. X plus 8 and plus 12 is multiplied to give you 96 and add together to give you 20. Okay, on the bottom, it's going to be x plus 6x minus 72. The most common one for 72 would be 8 and 9. But when we add those together, it's not going to give us 6x. So let's do 12 and 6. So it'd be plus 12 and x minus 6. And these two cancel out. And you're left with x plus 8 over x minus 6. That's your answer in simplified form. Alright, engineer decided to place the supports close together so the roof can hold more weight. Now each support is x squared minus 64 feet apart from the next. So the nice part about this is we can leave the top exactly the same, factored form. And on the bottom, it would be x plus 8 and x minus 8, because there's a difference of 2 squares. X plus 8's cancel, and you get x plus 12 over x minus 8. And that's your answer. All right. Make sure you turn your packet in. It's the only way you're going to get points for this. If you don't turn it in, you get no points. You're going to end up failing a Keystone class. Should be an easy half math credit. So let's make sure we turn our stuff in.